David Rubin, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Julie.
You've written a new book, Trump and the Jews, here. And you've been very outspoken about President Trump being very pro-Israel. What are you looking at when you say that? What policies are you referring to?
First of all, as far as his accomplishments, more recently, he's announced the closing of the PLO office in Washington. Trump is the best president in American history for Israel. And we've had some good ones. You know, before the State of Israel was reestablished, George Washington, John Adams, Abraham Lincoln, Harry Truman, these were people who were believing Christians who recognized that Israel is important, that Israel is God's country, and that you have to stand with Israel, and that it's good for America to stand with Israel. Trump has surpassed them all.
And why did you write this book?
Well, there are two reasons. One is that people have been asking me, why do the Jews, American Jews that is, and I'm an American Israeli, so I know both sides, why do American Jews always vote for the Democrats? So I could really explain to people why the Jewish people are so complex, and how Israelis can be gung-ho for Trump, and how American Jews, with the exception of the Orthodox Jews in America, who are big Trump supporters, why the bulk of American Jews do not stand behind this president when he has done so many good things for Israel.
Why are so many American Jews opponents of President Trump when he's done all these things for Israel?
Well, you have to look at the history of American Jewry. Okay, the American Jewish community came to America mostly in the early part of the 20th century. They were very poor. They came as very, very poor families, and they lived in slums, mostly in New York. And it took a long time until they started to develop, to prosper, and working long hours. They abandoned the observance of the Jewish Sabbath so that they could work. Many of them became involved with unions, and so they naturally leaned towards the Democratic Party. And in addition, we had the secularization of the Jewish community. That today the Jewish community in America is the most secular of all the religious communities in the country. And because of that, they've lost their biblical roots. They're not biblically connected anymore. Their religion is liberalism. Unfortunately, what has happened to the Democrats in recent years is that they've adopted the far left extremism, which is anti-Israel. So if Israel isn't top on your list of priorities, then you're going to go against Israel. You know, in addition to that, you have the immigration issue.
Israeli Jews, according to the polls, really like President Trump, and the American Jews, as we've said, you know, are not so favorable towards him. So why the difference?
I could sum that up in two words: Jewish identification. Okay. In Israel, we have wall-to-wall, across the political spectrum, support for President Trump. Israelis love President Trump. They think he's doing a great job. And and this is where it gets really interesting, because it includes secular Israelis. Those who lean a little bit to the left of the political spectrum, they love President Trump also. They think he's doing a great job. And why is that? Because they're Jewishly identified. Okay, like I put my emphasis on, yes, the Orthodox Jews in America, but that's because those are mainly the ones who are Jewishly identified. There are others in America, but in Israel, all Israeli Jews, for the most part, with the exception of the extreme left, they care about Israel. They're concerned about Iran and Iran's nuclear, you know, the quest for a nuclear bomb, and most Jews in Israel do care about Jerusalem being identified as the capital of Israel. And they are concerned about Palestinian and other Arab terrorism.
Yeah.
So President Trump is on the right side of history. And the right side of history is standing with the Jewish people. Every one of those policies and accomplishments that I mentioned, the breaking the Iran deal and having a more open policy, a more sensible, more rational policy, a more historically based policy when it comes to the peace process. Not supporting terrorist organizations that support terrorism, or quasi-governmental authorities like the Palestinian Authority that support terrorism. It makes sense by American standards. And this was one of my main points in writing Trump and the Jews, that I want people to understand, by the facts on the ground, by his accomplishments, that what he is doing is strengthening the bond between Israel and America in order to help the United States of America. Okay? But we know President Trump is an America First president. He's looking first at what is good for America. That's the point. There is no contradiction between the two. American leaders didn't see any contradiction. They think that, that it's good for America to be connected with Israel. So if that America-Israel connection ceases to exist, and that bond ceases to exist, then it's going to be bad for America also.
Okay, David, thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you, Julie.